Good morning, everyone. Glad to have you here today on this webinar. I hope you are doing well, staying safe, and adapting to the new normal. This time around, we have specifically organized a topic covering the business and investment migration program for Australia and Europe migration through Portugal Golden Visa. These are the two popular visa programs for investors, and you will be learning the main benefit in this session. Our keynote presenter today is Desmond Ang, our very own founder and managing director of Global Migration Solutions, with over 20 years of experience in end-to-end migration advisory. Desmond is the only migration advisor in Malaysia who is being awarded the top 50 global migration agency CEO. I trust this is going to be a very informative session for all of you. And we're going to have a Q&A session at this end of this webinar. Feel free to drop your question in the chat box, and we will catch up with you as much as possible and time allow us. For those who we couldn't catch up during the webinar, after the webinar, we will revert back to you. So that's all. And Desmond, over to you.
Thanks, Sam. Thank you. And hi, everyone. Good morning. And thank you. And it's our pleasure to have all of you here with us this morning. Thank you for the introduction, Sam. And I just want to do a quick introduction and just to share with all of you that this global migration solution was started in 2004 by myself and the other business partner, James Allen Hall. And from day one, what is important for us is to practice the right migration services with the trust and with our commitment to make sure that the client's application goes through successfully. And we have started off with Australia and New Zealand. We are always the big time player for these two countries. And over the years, we have also extended our services to cover Portugal, United States. Likewise, we also bring migrants over to Malaysia. Clients has seen us as a premium migration advisory company, reason being our successful records. And we have helped more than 12,000 families over the last 16 years. And our successful rate and our successful records has put us into one of the top 50 migration agency globally. Today, we have 5 offices from Malaysia, Singapore, Australia, Vietnam, as well as Hong Kong to help the clients in the region. And me being a licensed immigration advisor for Australia and New Zealand, we make sure the advice that's given to you are correct and transparent. As a quick start, I would like to give an overview on the comparison of the two programs to help you to stay focused on which programs might suit you better. Now, what is important, I guess, let's look at the investment amount, first of all, between the two programs. If you're looking at Australia, the programs is ranging from 200,000 Australian dollar to 5 million Australian dollar, depending on depend on which type of programs that you are going for. And I will go through with you slightly more detail later on. As compared to Australia, Portugal, Golden Visa investment is ranging from 280,000 to 500,000 euro. And in terms of what you could invest from the amount that you are investing, under Australia programs, the money is going to go towards setting up a business or investing into the government bond or compliant investment that's approved for the migration purposes. As for Portugal, you are allowed to invest your money into a property directly. In other words, Australia doesn't allow you to buy a property which qualifies you for a migration, but Portugal allows you to do so. Now, the next important criteria or the requirements is the residency. As between the two countries, Australia relatively requires slightly higher residency, which is on average of 6 months in a year. If you are applying and your visa get approved, you generally are required to stay in Australia 6 months on average in a year. As for Portugal, you are required to stay as little as 7 days in a year. Now, who can be included in the application? For Australia, there will be husband and wife, the children's below 23 years old. So the moment your children pass 23, they are considered as a family unit themselves, and they are no longer eligible to be included in your application. Now, Portugal programs, on the other hand, extended to cover the children's past 23 years old, so long they are still your dependent. And the definition of the dependency here is so long they continue to study and financially depending upon you. Other than that, you are allowed to also bring your parents as well as your parents-in-law. Okay. Now, certainly Australia, when you become an Australian PR, you also have the access to New Zealand and become a New Zealand PR and enjoy the benefits in New Zealand. As for Portugal, the moment you become a citizen of Portugal and you have the access to the rest of the 27 countries under the Schengen area. We'll look into that slightly detailed later on. Next, in terms of the English and medical tests, everybody in the application are required to undergo or meet the English requirements as well as the medical test, which doesn't apply to Portugal Golden Visa programs. And the ease of maintaining the PR, or permanent residence. For Australia, in general, the PR is issued to you for 5 years, and within that 5 years, you are required to stay 2 years cumulatively. And if you are unable to to meet the 2 years of residency, you must demonstrate a substantial ties with Australia in order to be able to maintain your PR. As for Portugal, you are required not to be absent from Portugal over the 2 years consecutively. In other words, you're required to spend as minimum as 1 day in every 2 years, right? And how soon can you become a citizen in Australia and Portugal? Let's take a look. For Australia, you can become a citizen as soon as you being a 4 years of residence in Australia. As for Portugal, it is at the end of the GV Golden Visa application residence. So, which is 5 years later, you can choose to become a citizen of Portugal. And between these two visas, the processing time for Australia takes about 24 months, which is 2 years. As for the Portugal Golden Visa, it takes as quick as 12 months. Okay. Now, let's look into how do you obtain your PR in Australia. And I'm going to walk through with you shortly the business programs and the investment programs. Now, Australia has outbid all other countries in the world over the last 4 years and has become the top migration destination in the world. Yeah. And no doubt, most of you know that Australia has the most livable city in the world under the OECD index. Very quickly, let's have a look at the business pathway. If you are a business owner already, you are running a business, you might be eligible to apply under one of these two categories. And here we are talking about 188A visa programs as well as the 132 visa programs. Let's look at the 188 first. Under these visa programs, you must already be a business owner of 2 years. If you have not started running a business yet, then you won't be qualified to apply for these programs now until you have managed to run the business, set up your business and run a business for 2 years. Yeah. And next, other than running a business, Australia immigration requires you to own the company for a minimum of 30%. Yeah. And your business in that 2 years periods, there must be a turnover of Aussie dollar 500,000 equivalent. Yeah, any amount or any turnover lesser than that won't qualify you to apply for this visa either. And other than the business experience, the immigration is also looking at the financial capacity of the migrants. Under the 188 visa application, you must already have a business asset and the personal asset, a combination of both, with a total worth of 800,000 Aussie dollar equivalent. Because under these programs, you are required to invest an amount between 200,000 to 500,000 Aussie dollar, depending on where you're going to. There are certain states that require you to invest lesser. There are certain states that require you to invest up to 500,000. Now, when we talk about this investment, the money goes towards setting up the company or buying over an existing company. The money, the leftover, is going to be kept in the working capital of the company for your business expenses. Okay. And this investment is not required until the visa is approved. And we mentioned it earlier, it is 24 months. So this application generally is to help you to plan for a residency in 2 years' time. It is not going to be immediate. And in terms of the residency under 1AA, after the visa is approved, when you start running the business in Australia, it is 50% of the time. Now, when we talk about 50% of the time, some of you might not be able to fulfill that yourself. Should that is the constraint, then your wife can help to fulfill the residency, or your spouse can help to fulfill that residency. So there's a flexibility given by the Australian government under this 188A for you or your spouse to spend the 50% of the time in Australia. Okay, now let's move on and have a look at 132A. This 132A has pretty much the same criteria, but different quantum. In terms of the business experience and the shareholding, it is the same, 2 years of business experience and 30% of the share interest. However, your current business must already be generating at least 3 million Aussie dollar already per year. Okay, and here we are talking about the business in Malaysia. Yeah, this is not the business in Australia. Yeah, your current business. Now, in terms of the assets, the asset requirement is 1.5 million. You must have a net worth of 1.5 million Aussie dollar equivalent. And this 132 require you to invest relatively a lot more as compared to 188A. It is ranging from 1 million to 2.5 million, again, depending on where you're going to. And why is it so? Why is it that one require lesser investment while the other one require invest more? Because 132 is a direct PR programs. So in 24 months time, when your visa is approved, you and your family member becomes a PR immediately. Yeah. And under 132 programs, there isn't a minimum residency under the legislation, but what the requirement is, you must spend enough time to be able to demonstrate that you have a genuine intention to maintain your business and you are spending enough time in Australia to be able to oversee and manage your business. Okay, if your business nature allow you to be based outside Australia and you maintain an active correspondent and business monitoring, and that would allow you to have a very minimum residency in Australia. All right. Now, so these two give you, these two summarize the business pathway for Australia programs. And let's take a look at the investment pathway. There are also two investment pathways under the Australia programs. The first one is 188B. Under 188B, you are required to invest 1.5 million, and this 1.5 million is going to be invested strictly into the government bond for 4 years. And this government bond is guaranteed by the government. In order for you to be able to apply this for these programs, you must demonstrate that you already have an asset net worth of 2.25 million Aussie dollar equivalent. And this could be an assets that you own here in Malaysia, or assets in Australia, or assets that you own anywhere in the world. And this government bond is giving an average of 1% of interest returned per annum. And 4 years later, the principal is going to be returned back to you. And during the 4 years' time, you or your spouse, one of you must fulfill 50% of the residency. In other words, 2 out of the 4 years. All right. Now, these visa programs takes 24 months to process, and the 1.5 million investment is required at the end of the 24 months when your visa is ready for approval. Okay. 188C, the next programs would allow or suit those who has the financial capacity to invest 5 million and has the very limited times to spend in Australia or to reside in Australia, because this 188C 5 million investments is going on into the compliant investment approved by the immigration for these programs purposes. It all goes into the private managed fund. Yeah. And these programs require you to spend as little as 40 days in a year. All right. And this too gives you an overview of how the investment programs are for Australia. Now, in terms of the timelines, all these programs, except the 188C, the 5 million investment, which takes slightly faster, the other 3 programs will take up to 2 years for you and your family to get approval. And there are 3 important steps here. Steps number 1 certainly is the eligibility assessment. From day 1, we make sure we take on the clients when we are confident with their outcomes. And that's how we manage to maintain our high successful rate over the years. We only take on the clients after a detailed assessment has been completed. And on average, it takes around 1 month to gather the documents, to review, to explain the entire process with the clients. Once we take on the clients, then the clients needs to decide where are they moving to in Australia, because that is going to depend on, you know, the investment they are investing and to the criteria that are required by the respective state's government. They need to fulfill that after, you know, the visa is approved. And the processing times for the state's government to offer a nomination on average is taking about 2 months. And after the nomination, the clients, then we will take on the client's application to the final stage, which is to file the visa application with the federal government. And we'll follow through the process until it is being approved. Of course, subsequently, after the visa is approved, we will continue to support our clients in terms of the relocation to Australia from the business opportunity to the investment opportunity to the schooling to the jobs, you know, to all sort of settlements requirements. We have the team of expertise to make sure that our clients settle down successfully and smoothly in Australia. Now, that is going to, those sharings are on Australia. And now let me take you to Portugal Golden Visa programs. When we talk about Golden Visa programs for Portugal, this is really an entry point for our clients to access to the entire Europe. Yeah. This Portugal Golden Visa programs was being introduced in 2012. Ever since then, the Portuguese government has received more than 12,000 applications under these programs. This program is very straightforward. It doesn't have as stringent requirements as what you have learned about Australia. This program is designed to bring in non-EU passport holder in general. They are welcome to invest in Portugal from an investment of 280,000 euro and above. And they are required to maintain that investment for 5 years. In other words, for example, if let's say they are buying a property worth 280,000, this property are required, or rather this investment is required to maintain over a period of 5 years. they could sell the property and repurchase a new property, but it has to be the same or higher amount. Yeah. And over the 5 years periods, the golden visa holder must spend at least 7 days each year in Portugal. And at the end of the 5 years, they could then make a decision to whether to convert to become a permanent resident or to become a citizen. Now, the features about the golden visa is it is a very straightforward programs that takes 12 months to process, and you can bring the entire family members, including parents and in-law. And these programs, in 12 months' times, these programs are giving you and your family members the rights to live, work, and study in Portugal. Yeah, of course, you and your family member has the access to the welfare system in Portugal and the education benefits in Portugal. And to maintain that programs for 5 years, the residency comes into the picture of 7 days in the year. At the end of the 5 years, you and your family member have the options to choose to become a citizen of Portuguese. From there, your access to live, work, and study applies across the entire Schengen area, which covers 27 countries. And Portugal, this country, has been seen as the best destination for tax planning purposes. A lot of a high net worth individual and high profile celebrity and football player has taken Portuguese as their tax residence for the tax planning purposes. And this, when you become a Portuguese golden visa holder, you do not automatically be exposed to the worldwide tax income unless you are to spend more than 6 months in the year in Portugal. So let's have a look at which 27 country. Let's have a look at the country. Just a moment. Okay, these are the 27 countries that you have as you and your family member has the access to after you become the citizen of Portugal. And this is an important, this is one of the most attractive features about the Portugal Golden Visa, because when you become a citizen of the Portuguese citizen, your kids can choose to study at the local citizen rate in any of these countries. And that also includes Ireland. For those who choose to, the kids who choose to study medicines, they can study in Ireland over the whole programs for about 20,000 euro. Yeah. And then for those who likes music, your kids can study in Austria. For those who likes to be in IT, Portugal has the best university, Nova University being the best IT university in the world. For those who wants to be in engineering, they can go to Germany. And these visa programs, this is how it works. Over the 5 years periods, you are given 2 years each times for over a period of 6 years. So under the first 2 years, you must maintain 14 days of residency. That's how it works out to be 7 days in the year. Or rather, you are traveling one round for 14 days, and that is considered as max. And at the end of the 2 years, the immigration is going to review if you maintain your investment, and if you fulfill the 14 days of residency, and then you will qualify for the second round of 2 years of the golden visa resident status. The same requirement apply. You are given another 2 years, but at the end of the 5 years, you and your family member should choose to either apply to become a PR or citizen. Now, there are 4 important steps. Unlike Australia, this program is slightly different because the investment for Australia comes after the visa approved, but for Portugal, it is an investment for residency programs. So these are the 4 steps here. As a standard procedures, we should have a one-to-one consultation to identify the eligibility of the clients. Then the second step is for clients to explore and identify their investment. The step 3, we will assist the clients to open up the bank accounts and the tax file in Portugal, and then take care their visa and also to take care of their visa application until the approval. Yeah. So you can see the whole entire process is actually a very straightforward process and hassle-free process. Clients generally, we are able to support the clients in terms of the bank accounts opening and tax file opening without client being in Portugal themselves. Yeah. And subsequently, we also take care of the settlement support for clients who invest into the property. We have our team in Portugal who is looking after, you know, the renter, the property management on behalf of the clients. Okay. Again, just to summarize the comparison between the two programs, in case for those who join us late, now under the Australia and the Portugal programs, the first of all, you know, the investment amount is different. For Australia, it's ranging from 200,000 to 5 million. As for Portugal, it's 280,000 to 500,000. In terms of the investment for Australia, the investment goes into the business to set up to run a business, or to invest into the government bond, or to invest 5 million into the compliant investment. For Portugal, you can invest your money into buying a property or approved fund for these golden visa purposes. And Portugal generally has a shorter residency, simply 7 days in a year. Yeah, as for Australia, 6 months in a year on average. And Portugal allow you to bring the children above 23 years old, should they remain as your dependent. That also includes your parents and your parents-in-law. Australia, as an Australia PR or citizen, you can choose to become a PR in Australia in New Zealand, and access to all the benefits in New Zealand. As for Portugal Golden Visa, you and your family member has the access to the benefits to the rest of the 27 countries when you become a citizen of Portugal. Okay. Now, the maintenance of the PR for Australia, again, is 2 out of the 5 years. As for Portugal, it is 1 day out of every 2 years. All right. The ease and the quickest to apply to become a citizen for Australia is 4 years later, and for Portugal is 5 years later. Yeah, and Australia has a slightly longer processing time of 24 months as compared to 12 months. Okay, so this is a very quick introduction about the two programs, which I have highlighted all the important notes that you should be aware of about these two programs. And I hope that that gives you a good understanding and a good overview between the two for you to be able to make a decision which programs suit you and your family better. Okay, and I believe that there's a question and answer session. After this, I'm going to pass over to Sam. Sam, over to you.
Hello again. So yes, there are questions actually here. Let me check again. There are some questions. So basically, I think we go for the first one. It says that I'm interested in both. So how do I choose between Australia and Golden Visa Portugal?
Okay. Well, thank you. Well, if you're exploring Australia and Portugal, and if you think that you are keen with both, I guess the decision should be based upon which country, should be based upon how flexible is your residency. If you don't see yourself moving over to the country so soon, and it is a plan for you in the future, then Portugal require a much lower residency, yeah, as compared to Australia. This is number one. Number two, that also depends on, you know, whether you have an intention to run a business. If you have an intention to run a business, and Australia has the business programs, whereas for Portugal, if you like to invest into the property for this residency, then Australia doesn't allow you to do so. So there are few criteria that you should be taken into consideration. And we welcome you to speak to us for us to understand your family's circumstances better, the timing, the age of your children's, and we are able to lead you through to get and answer yourself on which programs that suit you better. Thank you.
Perfect. There is another question. GMS, if you don't mind, you can introduce yourself. He logged in as a GMS, so he's asking, is there any age limit?
Age limit?
Yes.
Okay, yes. So under the Australia programs, the 5 million, the most expensive program, which is the 188C, doesn't have an age limit, and the rest has a 55 as the age limit. The rest of the 3 programs, which is the 188A, 188B, and 132A. Okay. However, if you pass 55, please do speak to us, because we might be able to get an age waiver for you from certain states. Yeah, but we need to understand to understand your intention, to see how we could get an exemption for age limits. As for the Portugal Golden Visa, there isn't any age limit.
So Portugal doesn't have any age limit, but for Australia, yet you encourage everyone to come back to us if they pass.
If they pass 55 years old,
yeah.
Yes, that's correct. We will see if there is a way to get an age limit. But having said that, we should also take into consideration if the spouse who could potentially be under 55 years old, who can apply as a principal applicants. So we have to look into a few aspects to decide.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. So the next question I received here, well, I think I can say it's for many people asking nowadays about Australia. Is Australia still welcoming migrants?
Yes. Well, the answer is yes. Certainly, Australia is still welcoming migrants. As much as a lot of news that you have read, whether it's for political motive, or or the news are not giving the truth picture, Australia continue to require migrants. But the mix of the migrants have shifted from skilled migration to high net worth individual. It is for the time being, and due to the pandemic, the budget, there is a switch. There is a switch in the budgets to allocate more budgets for the business and investor as compared to the general skilled migrants.
Okay, brilliant. Okay, give me a second. Okay, the next question is, I don't run a business. Can I apply for business migration? So I think that most relevant to Australia.
Yes, that's right. You can, generally, you have to, if you are looking at applying for a business migration, if you are not already running a business here, you can apply for these programs only 2 years after, should you meet the requirements. In other words, you would need to start setting a company, demonstrate your business experience and your business fulfilling the turnover requirements and the shareholding interest. Then you can effectively apply for this visa 2 years later, should the requirements remain the same. Yeah. Or else we will encourage you to explore the investment programs now or the Portugal residency programs.
Okay, perfect. The next one is more for Portugal. How much is a minimum investment for Portugal Golden Visa?
Yeah, it is the Golden Visa require an investment starts from 280,000 euro and above.
That would be the minimum requirement for Portugal investment.
That's correct.
Okay, so we do have much more questions, Desmond, but I think our time is limited. So let's, for those who we couldn't catch up with you, we will come back to you again after the webinar. We have your number. If you want, you can write down your number here, but we do have it. We will come back to you. You can text or email, text or call to the number on your screen, email to the inquiry@globalmigrationsolutions.com, and we will come back. But if you have any specific question or anything, we are more than happy to answer. You can call to set a quick chat or with Desmond or anything. We are more than happy to help everyone. Thank you so much, Desmond, for your time. It was very, very informative, and I hope all of you also enjoy it.
Thank you, everyone. Enjoy your weekend and take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.